everyone! In my Collaboween video today, I am going to show you guys how to make these do-it-yourself ear cuff dangles. The materials for this project are actually really super inexpensive, and I think these would probably be appropriate with a number of costumes, especially if you were going Greek, Roman, or Egyptian, if you were going to be some sort of warrior, princess, or belly dancer. And I made a pair of these for my 5-year-old daughter and she really liked them, so I think these could work well with little girls too, especially little girls that don't have pierced ears. Yeah, they're super comfortable. They just kind of rest on the back of your ear, and they're lightweight so they don't pull or snag. My hair is down. I should probably have it up because it does keep getting tangled with some of the long beads, but other than that, this is a really comfortable sort of costume piece, and I hope you guys like the video.
For this project, you'll need craft wire in 20, 24, and 28 gauge. You'll also need chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters, and optional or nylon jaw pliers. You're going to need a few head pins that match the color of your wire, and last but not least, you'll need beads. I chose to use these little semi-precious stone chips in my 2 favorite colors. Starting with a 20 gauge wire, this is relatively thin, and that's the reason why I like it. I think you could probably go thicker if you wanted to, but it's still secure enough for the earring back, and it's also super pliable, like you can bend it and rebend it. So if you make any mistakes, it's super easy to work with. That's why I like 20 gauge. And when you unravel it from the spool, use your nylon jaw pliers to straighten it out. That way you have a clean slate to work with. And I like to cut somewhere between 12 and 15 inches just because it gives me a little extra room to make mistakes. The first step is roughly measuring how big the earring cuff will be. Fold the wire over your ear and slightly bend it at your earlobe to mark it. When you finish that, you should have a shape that kind of looks like this. This is the ear hook that's going to actually slip over your ear, and this is the extra piece with which we're going to make the loops so that we'll have places for the dangles to hang from. So this is this is where the top of my ear would be. This is where the bottom of my ear is. I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to secure them, or I'm just going to clamp them down right here at the very bottom of the hook. And with the extra wire, I'm going to just twist it over to make a loop. So it should look something like this now. This is again the ear hook, and this is the first loop. With my chain nose pliers, I'm going to grasp the little loop, and I'm actually going to twist it. So it's kind of like a little loop knot now. Now this is just something that I prefer to do when I'm working on these. I like to straighten up my ear hook part. It's a little easier, and I can always bend this again when I need to. So that's my first loop. Now I'm just going to take this wire and bend it side by side so that the loop is on the bottom. I like to have the smaller piece on my left side and the larger here on my right. Again, I'm going to take my nylon jaw pliers and just straighten it out. And I'm going to make the second loop. And to do that, I'm going to use this side, the longer piece, taking my round nose pliers and clamp. And I'm going to turn it towards myself to make the other loop. So now I'm just going to kind of bend it, so twist it. So there's my second loop. You kind of want to have them evenly spaced out, but if for some reason you kind of make a mistake or something, don't worry about it too much. This is a really forgiving project, especially since, you know, they hang on the back of your ears, so you won't really see any and all mistakes. Again, with my chain nose pliers, I am going to clamp down on this little loop, and I'm just going to twist it around once. And there's the second loop. I'm going to make 5 loops. You can make 3, 4, 6, 7, however many you want. It just depends on how many dangles you want on the back of your earring. You'll notice that it starts to kind of curve on its own, and that's okay, just let it do that. We can sort of fix that at the end. When you finish making loops, you probably will have something that looks like this. And if you feel like any of the wires need like an extra twist, definitely go for it. You can also use your chain nose pliers to kind of move the loops a little closer to one another. So like if you feel like they're not evenly spaced apart, you can just sort of manipulate them so that they are maybe a little bit more even. And you may end up, or hopefully you'll end up with something that looks like that. In the next step, I'm going to use my 28 gauge wire. And this is really super thin wire. It kind of looks like thread, but it is in fact wire. I'm just going to cut a small piece. I don't need a whole lot. Again, I don't really have an exact measurement. I just kind of use my eyes and sort of gauge how much I need. I think this is probably, what, like 4 inches? You're going to secure these two wires together with a piece of the 28 gauge. And you're going to do it right on top of the 5th and last loop. So I like to use one hand to hold these two wires together, and then I'll just use my fingers to wrap the smaller wire around. You can also use your chain nose pliers if you want. You just grab it and just, twist it around. When you feel like you've twisted it enough times, you can push it together like that and cut off any excess. At this point, you're halfway done with the earring cuff. Rebend it over your ear again to get back that hooked shape. One of the wires is obviously longer than the other because this was the original piece that hooked over the ear and this was the piece we made the loops with. So to remedy that, you just take your wire cutters and clip it off. Now, holding these two wires together in my hand, I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I like to make my loop twist inwards, but you can always make it twist outwards if you want. Just sort of clasping the two wires together, and I'm going to turn them in like that. It should look something like that. They both have this little twist on either end. Now again, I'm going to take a piece of my 28 gauge wire, my thin wire, and I'm going to pick up my almost finished earring back. I'm just going to thread the wire through, and that's what I'm going to continue to do, is just thread it through. I'm sort of tying these two little hooks, these two little eyes together. When it comes to beading the dangles, I like to start from the bottom up. To begin, I use a head pin, pass on a bead, and then I will use my wire cutters to clip a large portion of the rest of the wire. With my round nose pliers, I'll make a loop with what's left over, and then I've got the first bead ready. If you wanted to, you could keep using your 20 gauge, but I've chosen to switch over to 24, which is slightly thinner. String another bead onto the wire, make the loop on the end with your round nose pliers, and then very carefully cut it on the other side. Make another loop, but before closing it completely, hook on the bead you finished previously. This is how you'll begin to create the dangles. Just remember, use a head pin for the bottom beads because it looks polished. Follow this up by stringing the rest of your beads onto your craft wire. Use your round nose pliers to create the loops in the wire that'll connect to the beads. Obviously, you can decide how long you want them to be, what colors to use, or even which pattern to place the beads in. When I finish with my strings of beads, I like to lay them out in the order that I'm going to put them onto the earring hook. And technically you could use jump rings to secure them onto these little loops, but I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm just going to pick each section up and very carefully open the loop with my chain nose pliers and just hook the earring on like that and close up the loop again. For this earring, my last step will be taking one more of these royal blue beads and another head pin, and I'm just going to string that bead on. I'm going to clip off some of the excess. I'm going to use my round nose pliers to make a loop. Before closing the loop on my very last bead, I'm just going to hook it onto the top part of the earring, and then I'll close it. And now I'm really finished with my earring. The fun part is trying them on. Remember, 20 gauge is super pliable and light, so if you need to, you can reshape them around your ear by pressing on the wire gently. That's the end of my video. I hope you guys liked it, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.